my friends, Paul here in the RoJoBe Music Workshop, and welcome to part 3 and hopefully the final part of the electric guitar full setup. So in the previous video I'd done the fret job, leveling, crowning and polishing, and also straighten the neck using the truss rod. Obviously did that first before the fret job. So the next job is to clean the fretboard itself. When you do a fret job, it always makes a little bit of a mess of the fretboard, so that has to be cleaned up as well. So the method I use, as do many other luthiers, is to literally scrape the surface of the fretboard with a single-edged razor blade. So I've got a brand new one here, still in the wrapper. I have already actually done some of this off camera because it's a fairly long job to do, because you've got at least like 22, 23 spaces on the fretboard between the frets. But I still wanted to show you the method I use. So let's just zoom in a bit. Or not. There we go. Let's just turn that around a bit. Okay, I'll just zoom in a bit more. Okay, so I've got my brand new single-edged razor blade, and I bought like a pack of 100 of these, so I'm not going to run out anytime soon. So what I do is, where shall I start? So I've done, can't see, I've done from the joint at the body right up to the 7th fret. So let's start here. So what I do is with my razor blade just carefully going from the fret, just literally scrape off the surface. And that removes any scratches, dirt, grime, and all that kind of thing. Use two hands, make sure I'm a bit more steady. And it really doesn't need a lot. You don't want to be shaving off layers of wood. I mean, it doesn't matter if you take a fine layer off, because obviously that's going to get you down to fresh wood, but you really want to take off as little as possible. You're just cleaning, really, and removing any scratches and swirl marks. Just move that neck support down so we can do the top two. So this does make a nice job. The finishing touches to the fret job. You don't want to leave the fretboard all nasty and grubby and grimy. Okay. So I'm going to continue. You won't see what I'm doing from here down, but I'm going to continue down to the 7th fret where I got to before. So as I said, hopefully this will be the final video on this, because I'm also sending these videos to the customer. I want them to, I don't want to hide anything, I want them to see the work I'm doing if they want to watch them, and see just how much value for money they're getting, because I don't charge a great deal for doing these jobs. I should charge a lot more, but you have to think about the cost and standard of living in Thailand compared to the West. They don't really understand the concept of how much work you put into these jobs, so there's no point trying to charge them what it's actually worth. Okay, so that's the fretboard itself all cleaned up. Just going to zoom you back out. Whee! Okay, so next I will now treat the fretboard with my trusty old boiled linseed oil. So any of you that watch my videos will have seen me do this countless times, and it's a pretty simple process really. The key is not to use too much really, so just get a little dab of it on the cloth and run that up and down the fretboard, and then kind of rub it in, making sure you get the wood nicely coated everywhere. And that's it, I literally put a dab of that on the cloth and that's more than enough to do the entire fretboard. Already it looks 100 times better. The most fiddly part, for some reason, is always right up next to the nut. That's where a lot of the grime gathers, and you really want to make sure that's nicely cleaned and oiled. Okay, so I can already see it soaking in. Doesn't take long. The wood will absorb as much oil as it needs to replenish itself, and any excess will actually remain on the surface. So that's why you wait a couple of minutes and then wipe off the excess. So I'll just start to do that now. Oops. I will need to do it again, just let it soak a minute or two and then wipe it over again. But I think you'll agree that that looks really nice. Nice and clean, uniform shade and colour, a little bit shiny. You don't want your fretboard to be too shiny, but this boiled linseed oil just brings back the natural sheen of the wood. Sheen, not shine. Okay, so just give it a final wipe over. Okay, that's looking amazing. Okay, so I'll try and wipe off as much of the oil off my hands as I can, because I've given the guitar a wipe over just to clean it. I've not used any polish or chemicals or anything, literally just buffed it with a dry clean cloth to get off all the smear marks and everything. Okay, so time to put it back together. Let me just turn that back around. Okay. Can I zoom in a little bit? Let's move that back. Okay, so off camera I did also remove the bridge, which is here, and gave it a bit of a clean up. It wasn't too bad, it was just dusty really. And these adjuster wheels for the bridge, so these turn in and out. Now when the bridge was on, they were pretty much at the bottom, so quite low action on the strings. So I've taken them out and cleaned them and put them back in, but I've left them higher than they were before. So as I said, that's to adjust the string height, the string action. Now I don't want to screw them all the way in, and then when I've got the strings up to tension, it's really difficult, if not impossible, to raise the bridge. So I've got it set high, so the action will be too high, and then when the strings are on and up to tension, it's a lot easier to lower the bridge than it is to raise it. So that's my train of thought at the moment. So put the bridge back on, and I'm going to leave the truss rod off for now, because I may well need to make another adjustment to that. I hope not, but I may need to. So I'll just give the tail piece a bit of a brush down. Again, it's not dirty or grimy, it's just a bit dusty. Nothing too major. Okay, so I'm going to unwind the strings from the headstock. Not actually take them off the headstock, just get them straightened out. Because I'll need to put those in the tailpiece before I try to reattach the tailpiece. I mean, these are fairly new strings. The customer did ask me, do I need to change the strings? And I had a look at them and I said, well, they're not in bad condition. They don't look like they're very old. I can change them, but I don't really need to. You know, there's no point doing unnecessary work and charging the customer extra for something that really isn't necessary. I asked them, have they been on very long? They said, no, not long really. I said, well, no point changing them then. They're still in good condition. They're not, you know, they're not worn, they're not grubby, grimy, rusty or anything like that. So really no point in changing them. They're good. So I'm going to just insert all of the strings into the tailpiece one by one. Okay, I'll see how that sits. First of all, so that I can get the strings all untangled. And as I said, I've got to put the strings into the tailpiece before I remount the tailpiece. Okay, that's 2. Next one is okay, that's 4, 2 more. Okay, last one. Okay. Got a little bit too much tension on that, I see. It's hooked up on the nut. Okay, that should be good. Which one is it? Okay. Right, just get the screws. Already got them out. And my big flat screwdriver. And mount the tailpiece back in. How are we doing for time? Off to time. Because I don't really want this to run into a 4th video. Okay. I've got something hooked up somewhere. Okay. Right, so I'll screw that down now. Again, as I've said before, don't tighten one screw fully and then the other. Make sure you get them partially in and kind of tighten them down evenly one at a time, alternating from one back to the other. You don't want them to go in skew whiff at all. These are good screws actually because they've got a broad head on them which actually locates into the hole of the tailpiece so that you know that it's going down in the right position. Okay, that's almost there. You want to make sure this is tight, but don't try to over tighten it because where it screws into, they're threaded inserts pushed into the body, so if you try to go too much, you could potentially strip them out, which you don't want at all. Okay, that's good. So I'll locate all the strings now in their bridge and saddle slots and into the nut. Looking again closely at this nut, I don't think I'm going to do any adjustment on it. I mean, it did seem a little bit high, but I think it's going to be fine, to be honest. But I'll have a look once I've set it up. You can't see what I'm doing. Still can't see what I'm doing. Once I've set it up, you know, I'll check the intonation and string action and everything. If I think the nut needs some work, I will do it. I'm not going to charge the customer any extra because, you know, I'd already quoted the price. and you know it's not going to need a lot, if it needs any at all really. I'm hoping it won't need anything doing. Okay. Almost there. Okay. The string took a little bit of winding on, but that's there now. Okay. So, string action does actually look pretty low. Okay, so I'm going to use my clip-on tuner this time. So I'm going to get the strings more or less up to pitch, perhaps a half step down or so. And then we'll start checking intonation and, action first and then intonation. Okay, so let's start to tune them up. Change the setting on there. Okay, those strings are more or less up to pitch. Not going to worry about accurate tuning right now because I want to check the string action. As long as they're close to pitch. So take these up a little bit more. Okay, that's close enough. String action first. So, using my string action gauge. So I want to get them actually pretty close to what they were before. So on the bass side they were at around about 2 millimeters, ranging to about 1.5 over to the treble side. So I want to get them as close as possible to that, because that's about right, to be honest. Okay, so let's start with a high E. Yeah, that's pretty high. It's about 2 mil. Okay, and the bass side, yeah, it's a little bit high, so that can come down a bit. So I'm adjusting the wheel on the bridge to bring that down. This bit actually might take a little while, but we'll see. Okay, bass side, still a little high, treble side. Okay, it's going to take quite a bit actually. There we go, that's going there. It's not easy to do these, but as I said, it's a lot easier than trying to raise the bridge. Don't think that one went very much, but let's have a look. Okay, bass side is probably about right. Treble side. still a fraction high, so the treble side's got to come down a bit more. Let's try that. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, that looks about right for the time being. So I am going to check for any buzzing before I do the intonation, because if there is still a problem, then obviously I've still got some work to do. Okay, let's turn you around a bit. So I'm just going to check for any buzzing. Okay, the bass E is good, and the A string. It's good. D. Okay, good. G. Okay, so far so good. B. Now, if I'm going to get any problems, it's going to be on the B and the high E string. That's where the majority of the problem was before, so let's have a look. Okay, the B is good, and the E string. Spot on. Happy with that? Great stuff. Okay, so intonation. Okay, so so for this, oh, turn you back round. Actually, let me try and bring that up a bit where you can see. Okay, so to adjust the intonation, I need a screwdriver for all the screws on the saddles. So I've got a couple of screwdrivers here, one slightly bigger than the other. It's really a case of how well I can get the screwdriver in between the strings. The big one's a little bit fiddly. Let's try this one. I think that might be the better one. Yeah, that's the way to go. So I'll use the smaller one. Okay, so tuner back on. How are we doing for time? Ah! Oh no. Almost out of time. Okay, let's crack on with this thing, quick as we like. Okay, so start with the low E. That's bang on. Okay. Bang on the money. That's good. D. Yeah, that's good. G. Bang on. What's going on? Spot on. I don't get this, as I've never come across this before, especially after doing all this adjustment as well. Well, I have to say, I've done quite a lot of guitars and things like that, and that's the first time I've come across almost perfect intonation, especially after doing all the work I've done to this. That's pretty amazing. And that really is testament to the guitar itself. I said at the beginning of this that, you know, I think the quality is really good. So, that's this little job finished. Little job. And it's going to be going back to the customer, and I know they're going to be really happy. So I'm just about to run out of time. I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.